Hello, hello, it's I, your favorite indie author, Julian Greystoke, author of such books as Second Floor, a supernatural thriller novella set in my hometown in Wisconsin. Check it out. This is not what it looks like. This is the author copy. It's not shiny in real life. I just wanted to see what it would look like shiny, so I ordered one of them shiny, just to see. Anyway, you can get Second Floor on Amazon right now. Trying to promote my books more. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit more fun. Every now and then I like to do a video where I ask you guys a question and then share your answers with the world. And I put out a question that was, what were some writing mistakes or publishing mistakes that you have made or still make that you'll admit to? Now, I didn't get a lot of answers for this, so either a lot of you are not making any mistakes, great job, or we're not willing to admit to them, which is also fair. I will also be sharing some of my mistakes that I have made in the past, and heck, might still make. Who knows? But let's go and have a little looky look at what people were willing to admit were writing and publishing mistakes. I'm not going to name and shame in these videos. I never say who said what, so you don't have to be like, Julian called me out. And also, it's normal to make mistakes in your writing and publishing process, even if you are traditionally publishing, which I self-publish, but even if you traditionally publish, there are lots of mistakes you can make. Like, for example, querying the wrong agents, which I have done, but even more horrifyingly, sending a query letter that was meant for a different agent to the wrong agent. Or, and, there's no or, there's an and, I did both of these things. Sending a query letter only to then read it back and realize that there is a blatant typo, like front and center. So, because I queried for a while before I decided I wanted to just go all self-publishing, at least for now. I have made some grand mistakes when it comes to that, as well as just querying agents without researching them well enough. I'm going to be looking down here to read stuff, so if you see me looking off camera, that's why. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just reading. So this first person says, it took me a bit to learn how to kill my darlings. Just because I like a character or a scene does not mean it serves the story. Now I paste them into a document of cuts so that I'm not fully deleting them, but instead giving them a new home. Well, I am going to be publishing a video, or potentially it's already out, all about killing your darlings, and spoilers, that's the same thing I do. I don't delete the scenes, I move them over so that they're not dead, they're just over here now. Or you can also have your own like director's cut where your copy of the book, on your computer has all the scenes that weren't necessary. Like, you don't have to delete everything. But we'll get more into that in the video all about killing your darlings, how to kill your darlings, when to kill them, how to identify which darlings. We'll get into that in that video, but yes, this is a really common one, is figuring out how, when, why to kill your darlings, and also what to do with them. This person said, I thought that word count doesn't matter as long as I like the book. But it turns out readers get spooked by 350k plus word books. Yes. Word count does matter, unfortunately, as much as we tell ourselves, well, there's some really chunky books out there and they're beloved. Circumstances are probably not going to go in your favor when it comes to that, unfortunately. Those books that are beloved are either by authors who have put in the work and published many, many books, or they have gotten extremely lucky in the publishing world, and the publisher has decided that that book is going to make enough money for them to pay for all of those pages, especially if you're starting out. So much if you're starting out. Less is more. Smaller books when you're starting out. You want to publish that giant, enormous, chunky epic? Save that on the back burner. Write something smaller and more manageable, because whether you are self-publishing or you're traditionally publishing, agents are looking for any reason to not have to read more of your book because they have so much to read. So if they see on your cover letter that it says that your book is over their word limit, they have a perfectly good reason to just pass it on by and not even give it a shot. So make sure that you are following those word limits. Publishers aren't looking to spend a lot of money on an untried author. That's the thing. Pages cost money. The more pages they have to put in a book, the more money they have to spend on you. And if they don't know that you're going to make them money or have a really good idea that you are going to make them money, they don't want to pay for all those pages. But even if you're going indie, even if you're self-publishing, if you are unknown and your first expectation for your reader is this enormous text, it's gonna intimidate a lot of your readers. Like later, once they know you or once they're into the series, the books being bigger, yeah, they'll probably be committed. But asking somebody to make that commitment for something they've never tried before is a lot. Which is why my first book that I published restarting my author career was The Wolf and the Hawk, which is a very manageable size. This person says, I didn't write a first draft and now my life is in shambles. Unfortunate news for us all is that we do have to write the first draft. Yeah, I know, I'm as disappointed as you are. This person says, I didn't order a proof copy first. That's what this is. This is a proof copy. And if you are self-publishing, you want to get probably multiples of these because you're going to get one, you're going to go through it, you're going to find stuff that you don't like, you're going to find stuff that's not working. Somehow the page numbers didn't, that's like my number one thing that happens, is that somehow the page numbers didn't transfer. I don't know what happens to page numbers. Do they get eaten by goblins? Who knows? But like you're going to find things like random stuff, the formatting's not going to be correct, and the words are going to be all wonky, or you don't like the cover when it's in front of you. So ordering these proof copies is so important when you are self-publishing. It's a little bit of extra money, but it's really not that much, and you get to find out how much your book might suck. A lot of times, like, you can get a certain amount for free, but if you need, like, a lot, you know, if you keep finding things, then it can cost you money. But, like, I think that your first so many are free, at least with Amazon. Yes, important lesson, and something that I also needed to take to heart when I was younger. Let's see if I can drum up another one of my mistakes that I have made or continue to make. So a mistake writing-wise that I made and then had to correct in myself actually came from a piece of advice that someone gave me when I was young, when I was starting out. It actually happened when I gave my very first book that I wrote when I was 13 to an adult who was a teacher, and I was like, please read this. Please read this and tell me if it's any good. She didn't get very far. In her defense, it was not good. But the thing that she told me, and then my little author brain internalized, is she was like, make sure whatever you include in a scene matters. In the scene, if there's a sword on the wall, someone should take that sword down and use it later. And now I get what she was going for. She wanted younger me to not have superfluous information in my scenes, which, in the defense of younger me, I don't think I really did. Honestly, like, my early work is disastrous, but I think it tended towards the underwritten versus the over. So I think because she didn't read very far, she didn't know what I had in mind for the details that I had included. So she might have been giving that advice thinking that those details weren't going to matter, and then they did. I took that like too far to heart. Rather than just hearing, make sure that everything in your scene matters, I took it to mean like, don't describe anything ever unless it matters to the plot. Don't have any single shred of information unless it is crucial to the plot. And so for a while, I was teaching myself to write just the most bare bones of books, just the most underwritten, like, stick figures of books. And I had to, once I realized that I was doing that, I had to go back in and fix it and also retrain myself how to let myself describe things again. Even now when I'm drafting, I tend to be a little bit more of an underwriter than an overwriter most of the time. And part of me wonders if I'd never gotten that advice and I'd never taken it so completely to heart on face value. I'm probably neurodivergent. Can you tell? Just like I get a piece of advice and I take it 100% on face value instead of like interpreting it. If I hadn't have done that, what kind of writer would I be like now if I hadn't like hamstrung myself for a while in my writing journey? It's important information to not include too much superfluous stuff, but for somebody who was already kind of not doing that, hearing that piece of advice kind of messed with me. Important information for us all to take away from that is that advice is just advice, and when possible, just take it in the broadest sense of like what that advice could mean instead of being like me and being very literal. All right, let's see. What is the next one here? This person says, not uploading publishing before Gen AI became a big thing. Now people are always going to wonder if I write my own stuff, even though I've been writing in private for 20 years, 10 years in English. Is that true? Like, I would really like to know, all of you authors who are sort of coming up now, who are getting into publishing now, Do you feel you are going to be accused, or you are being accused of using AI to write now? Is that a thing that's happening? From my experience anyway, from the way that beginning authors write at this point, that I still feel like very strongly that I would not be accusing something that's maybe a little bit crunchy of being AI. In fact, the crunchier it is, the less likely I think it is that it's AI. But like, could somebody accuse my books of being AI? My books have certainly at this point been scraped to be used to train AI, so potentially my voice is out there. So is that a fear that we have now? A new fear unlocked? I don't know.
I did see very recently, between the filming of this and the editing of this, that Savvy Writes Books did a video about some authors recently who left AI prompts in the text of their book. Now, they weren't using the AI to write their whole book. They were using it for quote-unquote editing and quote-unquote punching up their prose. But if you feel like you have to do that, it's not actually doing that. Not yet anyway. The AI is not good enough to do that. You need a real person to look at your book. But anyway, so it is out there. I guess people are trying to do it and getting away with it, unless they're real dumb and leave the AI prompt like in the text. Here we don't do that. We are a very anti-generative AI to help us with our books channel here. So if that's something you like to do, you might not feel at home in this channel.
Don't stop writing just because you're afraid that somebody's going to call it AI, because there's bad actors everywhere who are going to call your work shit no matter what. There's people, my least favorite one is, this reads like a first draft. Always written by people who don't know what a first draft actually looks like. I'm like, know that it's not a first draft. It is not written like a first draft. It's not a first draft. Stop saying that. Maybe it's an earlier draft. Maybe you mean it needed another draft, but that's not a first draft that you are looking at right now. So like, is it just going to go from, oh, this reads like a first draft to, oh, this reads like AI? Is that just going to be the new thing? Probably. Don't stop writing just because you're worried that somebody's going to call it AI. Because if we stopped writing whenever somebody came up with a new mean thing that they could say about our book, we'd never get any writing done at all. Ooh, this person says, the first time I published, it was with a vanity publishing company. It mostly ended up costing me a lot of money, and they made several mistakes in the print. I felt fooled. You were fooled, but don't feel bad. It's not your fault. It's their fault. Vanity presses are out to take your money and churn out as sloppy of a book as they can on their end. Do not fall for them. They are so tempting. They look so good, especially if you're like thinking of self-publishing, but it's very intimidating. Like looking at it from the outside, it's so intimidating. My advice is to just take it one step at a time and go at whatever pace you need to go at. But vanity presses, they seem like they're going to take all of that weight off of you, right? Like they're going to design your cover. They're going to format for you, right? Like it's going to be good. So you give them lots of money, but the final product that you get isn't what you thought you were going to get, because vanity presses are scams. Somebody's going to come into my comments and be like, no, I used a vanity press and it wasn't a scam. I'm glad you had that experience, but that is not the experience of most people. Do not feel bad for being fooled by vanity presses. The point of scams is to fool. That's the point. They want your money, and they want to spend as little of it as possible on making your book good. Take the time, put in the effort, hire the real people. Like, instead of hoping that they pick a good cover for you, hire a cover artist and get a good cover for you. Spend that money, not on a vanity press. It's going to take longer. It's going to maybe be more intimidating, but if you don't want to traditionally publish, figure out what you need to outsource and hire those people yourself. Vanity presses aren't really going to market your book for you either. If they're saying they're going to, they're really not. They might put it in a few places that you wouldn't have put it. But then they say, with the first book, I took a script I wrote as a 16-year-old and refurbished the language a bit, only changed the plot here and there. It wasn't a bad script, but I should have analyzed the plot and characters better. My beta readers were not harsh enough to tell me either. The problem occurred when I started refurbishing the second script in the series. It was not a good script, and I had to change it into something entirely different. And that was when I realized that I should have written the first book differently as well. They say probably I'll make some errors in the third too, but with every new book that gets published, I learn a little more. That is true. We are always learning. If I stop learning, I'm dead. Also, not getting beta readers that are gonna tell it like it is another issue that people run into. You definitely want to get people's eyes on your book that are gonna tell you that your baby is ugly and how it's ugly, and then you can fix it. If your beta readers are only coming back to you with positive things, that probably doesn't mean that your book is somehow the most amazing book and everybody likes it. It probably means that you didn't find the right beta readers. This person says the mistake was chasing a shiny new idea, burning out while planning, and getting a new shiny idea. Cycle repeats over and over, nothing gets finished. There is a hump that you have to get over when the shiny idea phase wears off. It's like the honeymoon phase. It's gonna wear off. And there's a hump. And a lot of beginning writers assume that there's either not, or that it's gonna be super easy, or they're gonna be in the honeymoon phase for their entire book, and you won't. Now, the good news is that once you've practiced a little bit, that hump gets easier and easier to get over. It does, at least for me. But when you're starting out, yeah, those shiny new ideas are going to keep coming, and there's going to be no magic new idea that's going to make you want to finish it once you get to that point. It's going to come down to forcing yourself sometimes. I know it's unpleasant, but we gotta if the book's gonna get written. This person says, being a perfectionist, obsessively seeking out writing tips online, trying to model my story after another author's. Yeah, perfectionism is your enemy, especially when you're drafting, but you can get bogged down in getting too much advice. The advice starts to contradict. You're looking at what other authors are doing and you're like, I want to do it just like them. When in reality, like I say at the beginning of every single one of my videos, advice is just advice. You don't have to take it. If it's not working for you and your story, don't take it. Or bend it to your will. Make it work for you. If there's a piece of advice that would kind of work for your story, if you kind of keep it in mind in the back of your head, but not exactly the way the person said, then do that. This person says, giving up via procrastination. Yep. Writing is a habit. It's something you have to train your brain into. So it's really easy to give up because the shine has worn off. It's that honeymoon period. Okay, here, let me go back to one of my mistakes. When I was younger, I assumed that I could just write the book, publish the book, and the audience would find it. I would just put it out there in the world, and the audience would find it, because that's how I found books. I would just be wandering along, and I'd be like, this book looks good. I'd be at a bookstore, I'd be at a library, I'd be like, this book looks good, and I'd pick it up. And I thought that's how everybody does it. But in fact, no. If you want your book to get seen, you have to do advertising. And because I was under the erroneous assumption that my audience would just magically find me, or that my friends and family would all buy my book. That was another thing that I thought was going to happen. That's not a thing that happens. Nobody's going to be as excited about your book as you are, and most of your friends and family aren't going to be even excited even a little bit. So do not count on your friends and family buying your book and then singing its praises and reading it and singing its praises to the heavens and all of that. That's not going to happen. So you got to learn to advertise. But I didn't for a really long time, and I'm really bad at it, and it's still a learning curve, and I'm still figuring out the advertising angle of things. So do not be a silly person like Julian and assume that you will just make the book and give the book into the world and the audience will find it. That's not how that works. No audience will find it. Do you have any idea how many books there are on Amazon that no one has read because they don't even know it exists? All right, I think I have one more here, and I might have a few over on Threads or Blue Sky. I can't remember, but this person says, I tend to be overly descriptive to set the scene, but I have difficulty telling instead of showing, which is not a problem for me. I love to be shown, not told, personally. There's one future writing project I started that takes place not long after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, where I made the mistake of having a person with a thick accent, not knowing that's no longer acceptable. Thank God, too, because it's exhausting to write. Yep. Writing out accents phonetically has really kind of gone by the wayside. We've stopped doing that. It can be considered insulting to the people who actually have those accents. So while I grew up reading a lot of stories, including one of my favorites, Brian Jakes, he always wrote out accents. And it was always accents from like places around him. Like he didn't try to write out like a Jamaican accent or anything like that. But that's not the done thing anymore. And honestly, as sad as I was initially when it first stopped being a thing, and I was young and I was still coming off of my love of Brian Jakes and the old school way of writing where you wrote out the accents, now I'm really glad that we have stopped doing that. And you can just say this person had a Southern accent, and you don't have to write the Southern accent. Now, word choice will still matter. You would still use words that a person from the South would probably use, but you don't have to write out the accent. Thank God. And in fact, you probably shouldn't write out the accent. And in fact, if you're writing a book right now and you're writing out the accents, consider maybe don't. All right, I have one person reply to me on Blue Sky. They said, I'm horrendous for sentence fragments, the bane of my existence. Every time I end up writing, sometimes I don't understand what I mean. I hope you appreciate also that they wrote this almost entirely in very short, choppy sentences, and sometimes sentence fragments. Run-on sentences that never seem to end are also a big issue of mine. It's like I think a comma is a full stop. It is not. I rarely even use semicolons. So, punctuation. The bane of many of our existences. Thank God for editors, let me just say. I think I'm getting better at it, but then, like, my editor looks at my work and they're like, So I think I'm going to wrap this video up here because I'm going to go make myself some dinner. I'm getting hungry. But what did you think? Feel free, if you missed out on this, to comment below and let us know what mistakes you have made, are still making, plan to make in the future. What mistakes are we still doing out there? It's okay to have made mistakes or make mistakes. That's normal. It's part of growing. If we never made mistakes, then learning wouldn't be a thing. And I hope that some of the things that we talked about here today were helpful to you. If you're worried about making mistakes and you want to hire somebody to be on the lookout to help you keep an eye out for those pesky ones, you can hire me. I'm a developmental editor. You can find me over on Fiverr. We'll talk. We'll figure out if I'm the right fit for your book. And of course, don't forget that you can also follow me on Patreon, where you get exclusive content not seen here on the regular channel, or become a channel member for that exact same content. Anyway, I'm gonna go now. I'll see y'all next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye.
Angel, angel, angel. Does every conversation we have to come around to that freak? Hey man, how you doing?
You want to know who I won't stop talking about? My patrons. Patrons like Jen, Tex, Moon Island, Zenith, Corey, Ashley, Bunna, Nemo, Tactical Hot Dog, Haley History Nerd, Stephanie, Pixelizzy, Raya, Christina, Cameron, Lady Kragan, Jose, Lunar Muse, AJ, Marshy, Semi-Dark, GK, Annika, Jen, Gay Tutter, Tina, Laknanga, SB Boots, Martha Baggins, July, Bird Anonymous, Sarah, Cat, 78 kilograms of shade, Ingrid, Roma, Haley, Sam, Kira, Mooney, Pudamancer, Kirsten, Bear, Jojo Bookish, Robin, Ursula, Caitlin, Jessica, KJ, Mufflier, Celia, Deborah, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Marine, Kit, Hidden Glade, like Julie, Patrick, and Sophie, Callison, Vampire Antihero, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, and Jenny. Thanks so much for your support, guys. I couldn't be doing this without ya.